presentation. It is where you will be asking questions, not me just randomly telling you information.
But you have to ask a question in the microphone. So just raise your hand if you have a question.
If you have a question, raise your hand.
If you have the microphone, you can talk.
Would it be possible to consider a new command or an incant or some version of 635 so that I can cast it in a player-friendly mode rather than just kill mode? I would like a choice so that I can not kill all you players or me players or everybody that walks past me.
It would be possible with a target limit.
Based on lore?
Yeah, it would be based upon skills. Just like Cone of Elements when we recently updated it. All right, we're done. Thanks, guys.
Hey, could you introduce yourselves?
I am GM Distilled.
GM Mistis.
I'm GM Chaos.
Maybe I'll turn on this mic.
So, anything new with the Wizards? I hear there's a lot going on. Any news for the foruming public?
The what?
The foruming public.
Forum going public. People that post on the forum.
Going public with what?
He's just going to stare at you until you stop talking.
Just anything new with Wizards. They seem to like to talk about it a lot. So, anything new?
That I like to talk about?
No. Everyone likes to talk
okay.
about them. And by talk, I mean complain.
No, there's no like major updates coming. GM Vitus, who should be up here too, has some minor updates that he'll be releasing soon. It's very minor, just some quality of life type stuff. That's about it. I mean, Wizards have got more development than any other profession in the last year, so.
It seems good, but seems like some people might disagree. Certain people.
Oh.
I'll leave it at that. I say go Wizards. 520 is awesome. Woo.
I have a question just about balance in general. It comes up a lot in development conversations. So what does the balance mean, like at a high level to you? Does that mean every profession gets play? Does that mean, how do you think about trade-offs?
There definitely should be strengths and weaknesses to every profession. We do try to strike a balance to make things even. It's not a very good experience if you play one profession and you see another profession do something and you don't have a strength that's comparable. Like, everyone should kind of feel jealous of certain things that each profession can do. The unfortunate thing is that when you have a 25-year-old game, we can't make some of the balance changes that we want to make because of player reaction, just because of it would require a complete overhaul of the combat system. So sometimes we allow things to just persist just because players don't like change, but at other times a change is needed, and so we then do step in and have to make adjustments.
I actually have 3 questions. One at a time, and then have them come back.
Yeah, one at a time.
First question is, any chance of mining and smelting being implemented anytime soon?
GM Kos has, it's his project. He's done some work on it, but it's kind of massive. So it is on his plate, but it's not like a high priority at this time. If you have a second question, go.
I actually have 3, but I was going to go ahead.
No, do all 3.
Okay. Number 2 would be the history of Zool.
There
Is
isn't
there any
one.
chance of there is history, and yeah, I was curious as to whether or not there's going to be any further development in that area, but I think I heard it by you saying there is no history.
No, that is definitely a Worlds team question.
Okay.
It's not something that development would be involved in. So. If you think of it, you can.
Okay, currently there is no way for anybody in the game except for testing
to look at how much TD is on armor, a shield, whatever it may be. Is there any plan for like an assess for TD? Because when we put it in the shop, it just says it protects from magical attacks. There's a big difference in something that's a +4 and a +20 TD.
So you're meaning it does show up, but you don't see the exact number?
Right.
That's something we could probably look at updating lore singing to provide.
Either that or assessing by a wizard or 405. Because like a paladin or cleric can assess for sancting or bless. Warrior can assess for padding. You know, maybe a mage could assess for TD.
Well, I wouldn't say a mage. I would probably maybe sorcerer, but really I would just defer it to lore singing. Because I mean, even like mages can't. Right, but you're talking about an exact number, and that's usually for lore singing. Yeah, it would be pretty easy to add, so it's definitely something we could look at.
That'd be great.
I have a couple of cleric spell questions. Any news on like 320, making 330 an innate ability, combining 309, 315?
Hold on, one question at a time.
General clerical spell circle.
320 is something I definitely want to see get done, but the problem is until we have a good idea, we're not just going to fill the slot just to fill it.
Right. Do you guys have any ideas yet?
No.
Anything going on there?
We don't. Coming up with spells, something that's going to serve a role that's actually going to be functional and worthy of a level 20 profession spell slot is not the easiest thing to do. I mean, we did get Soul Ward 319 implemented, but even that took a good long while before we came up with that idea. So if players have ideas for that, we're certainly open to suggestions for it. 330 would not become an innate skill unless we have another spell or idea to fill that slot. There's no reason to do that when we don't, we're not just going to make empty spell slots.
Right. I mean, would you guys be open to making 330 an innate ability?
Yes, if we had an idea that we wanted to put in the 330 spell slot, it would be pretty easy, and I would not be against making it just like a commune verb.
Okay. And then, something like combining 309, 315, and making a bolt attack spell, since clerics have just one.
Combining wouldn't happen again unless we had a reason to do it. I'm certainly not against combining those two spells, and if we had an idea for like the 15th or the 9th circle, I mean, it's an idea.
Okay. And not any movement on like a bolt spell, replacing that in another clerical, because they have this holy bolt, and this is really just an undead bolt.
We do have some ideas that we've had for a couple of years now, but we just haven't had time to get to it. So I would like to see another bolt spell, probably in the 200s, but it's kind of low priority. So
okay, one last one. 1750. Any ideas on that? Paladin level 50.
1650 or 17?
1650. I'm sorry.
Actually, we do,
right.
but we're not ready to talk about it.
Aww.
I will tell you that it's actually to the point where it's mostly already been coded.
Okay.
So you can expect to see it very soon.
Okay.
Really?
Yep.
Like within the next this year?
Within the next couple of months.
Oh, sweet. Okay. That's all I got.
1650.
Any news on the transport system?
So the Phase 2 update for that has actually been on my plate. It's something I've been wanting to tackle. I've just been pulled in various other directions. I do plan on trying to make it a top priority right after Simucon, because it is something that we definitely do want to get implemented.
So, since we're on the topic of higher level spells, do we have any news on 750 for sorcerers yet?
We do not. There's no actual design for one yet. So, again, if players have ideas, they can suggest them. Or until then, it's just a matter of waiting for a good idea for it.
All right. So the second part to that question is, when are we going to be able to update minor summoning so that we can actually utilize the demons to attack, similar to what animates do, as opposed to just being utility.
That probably would never happen. Like maybe that could happen like as the level 50 spell, but there would be no reason for us to make minor demons an attack when like those two spells are intentionally very different. One is more utility, one is more combat oriented. But that doesn't mean like at the level 50 spell slot we couldn't have a version of Animate Dead and Demon Summoning that come into play based upon your training, so you could have that option. I mean, there's been a lot of good ideas for about summoning a major demon type pet. The problem is like you look at the existing pets and most people don't find them that useful. So like I would be hesitant to want to make that a level 50 spell unless we address those concerns about pets in general first.
Hear me now?
Yep, we
Great.
can hear you.
So along, had mentioned earlier that the weighting and padding system was going to be enhanced so that it could be used alongside other features for weapons and armor. And right now, if you have a weapon or armor that has multiple features to it, such as the resists and weighting and this and that, you can't actually tell what is what. So along with that, what things are.
Yeah, that's definitely a bug and needs to be fixed.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You should build Lure Seeing should be able to tell each and every property of an item.
Okay. There's some details about it on the boards if you guys want to take a look at it.
Okay.
Cool.
Entirely selfish question. Anything coming up? Anything coming up for empaths? Pretty happy with where we're at, but
we actually have been talking about some design for empaths, some updates. Looking at like replacing Cry for Help with a different spell. Some other ideas. I don't really want to go in details yet because we haven't actually started any of the coding for it. And so because of that, it could easily fall through, but definitely some stuff in the works.
Cool. Thank you.
Oh, I should kind of phrase that. It's more focused towards healing, and again, going back to the whole design of creating more incentive for healing versus hunting empaths based upon what their skill training is.
Okay, I had a couple questions here. First one is, I just recently started doing GOS and noticed that the cleric mobs there can cast an old cleric spell that
Interdiction.
that basically screws anyone with mana over for about 5 or 10 minutes. Being looked at.
I would not remove it, but it certainly a duration should be like significantly reduced, probably like to a minute.
Okay. Because I mean, it drains your mana to 0 every time. So
yeah, and then you have to go to a node and wait.
And then
yeah.
you're done.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Where squares don't have to really deal with that problem.
Right.
Another question I had, is there anything looked at for like the rift hunting, specifically the liches, as far as those who can't cast major spiritual or Volan, to be able to actually hunt liches and not get the crap dirt out of them?
No, because I would say that there are options to combat that.
Well, don't the Lich Bane talismans get stripped from you if they're not native?
If they do, we can probably look at making it so that it doesn't happen in the scatter and the rift.
Okay.
Because that is like supposed to be one of the big perks of that.
Right. And then I know you just commented on wizard spells specifically, but I have to ask about the 525 situation. It's basically a spell I feel like that we're not really allowed to cast.
Yeah, no, 525 is something we definitely want to update, make it useful. The general theme would stay the same, but I know there's a GM that's hoping to tackle it soon, but he hasn't actually started yet, so.
I'm over here. I'm over here. Hi.
Oh.
So on the Cry for Help, I like that spell, but I want to talk about locate. With regards to locate, there are more and more areas where we can't locate, and then when people die, you can't find them, and a lot of us are circumventing the game using LNet to find those people. to rescue them. Is there any way that we can maybe have it set that if you've got a certain amount of lore, you can see into those areas? I don't want to see into somebody's private home, but the bowels, the Varinar, I mean, the level 16 critters, level 20 critters, we can't find these people.
I would probably say if you could come up with a list and post it on the forums, I will be willing to look at those. Unless there's like a good like history or roleplay reason, we generally don't like to do that for the reasons you pointed out. So we can evaluate those if you think that there are certain areas that are preventing it when it shouldn't.
On the same vein, if somebody locates me and I'm Yolanda, I've got a fair amount of lore, I can usually locate back. But if they're wearing Unpresence, I can't. And it seems like if I have a certain amount of lore, I should be able to override that if I have more lore than they do. Because it's really frustrating when they're doing that and you're trying to see who located, especially when you're in a situation where they're doing it repeatedly and you don't want to report and whine to the GMs.
Well, I mean, any form of harassment should be reported, even if you think it's minor. Outside of that, I do not see allowing any type of override for Unpresence because that is like the sole purpose of the spell, and I hate to negate that with anything.
On the same token, though, if I locate Cruxifem and I'm Unpresence, that should make it automatically drop off. That should make it should drop off, and then you should be able to locate them back. It's just like if you do an action and you're invisible, you gotta unhide. It's gonna knock you out. It's the same concept.
I mean, you can make justifications for it either way.
Just as a follow-up to the lore singing question, if we could have the specificity of the information given, so rather than giving a verbiage that would specify a range, to actually give the numbers and just be very specific.
In terms of charges?
Anything, really.
Well, I think charges is the only thing that works that way.
Okay.
Like enchants give you like the exact number.
What about
Resistances.
I would say I'm probably
padding, weighting.
I would probably say I'm not against it, but like the development team overall would have to discuss it to see.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Not sure if this was covered earlier, but for moving the weighting and the padding to its own slot, would that make like a weighted weapon eligible for like the paladin bonded guiding light players?
Well, I mean, they're not ineligible now, though. It's just that you don't get the guiding light.
Right, you don't get the flares.
You can still bond to it,
right.
though.
Would you get the flares now?
I don't see that changing necessarily. I mean,
they're going to be blessable, and right now anything that's blessable gets blessable.
Well, the thing is that even though we're moving these to a separate property, not necessarily everything will just outright be blessable. Like, don't expect blessable Cladmores because that's not going to happen. Just because we're doing that doesn't mean we're opening up the floodgates on all that stuff.
Okay.
It's something to consider. I'm not outright against it, but at the same time, like, that's intended as a choice that the paladin makes when they choose what to bond to now. It wasn't chosen as like mechanically we can't do this because we certainly could have done it, but we just don't. We chose not to allow that to work that way.
So would a Claymore never have flares? Any kind of flares?
It's probably highly unlikely. I mean, like, the type of stuff that we would probably... Well, okay. For auction quality, certainly. But, yeah, it's possible.
So it's possible, it's just being restricted?
Yes. Like, well, especially for, like, player castable spells like Bless and E-Blade, don't expect those to work on it. But,
okay.
Like, there could be an auction quality version of that did have those.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Question on Rangers. We talked earlier, and the long-term effort on the companions, which is awesome. Resist 620. A lot of Rangers wear chain. Is there any possibility we consider a self-cast, short duration resistance for Rangers that, I mean, not many of us wear a brig once we're past a certain level. So I'm looking for, maybe we have to go make a potion and that for ourselves. I don't care. but it would be nice to be able to actually use the spell for the capped rangers.
Yeah, I think 620 could probably be reevaluated to consider whether that restriction is appropriate or not.
Excellent. Is there any development going on for rangers other than that?
Nothing specific comes to mind.
So we briefly talked about this last night. The specifically with spell 1618, right now it adds damage padding. We talked about the UAC. It doesn't add damage padding to the UAC. Do any of you know how that figures into that equation? If it figures in
Hold on.
before the multiplier?
What spell are you talking about? Because 1618
adds damage padding and flares. Crusade.
No,
the
new
16,
Crusade. Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, now that I know, what's the question?
It adds damage weighting and flares. Right now, if you use UAC, you can still hit for 1 point of damage.
Okay. So you're saying it doesn't work on UAC?
It doesn't add damage padding like it does in other.
That's probably a bug.
Okay. I didn't know if any of you were familiar with that, how that figures in, if it figures into the multiplier or to.
It wouldn't figure into the multiplier. The multiplier is just used to determine whether you hit or not, and then based upon whether it's successful or not, the damage padding would get added.
Okay. So it's probably just a bug, and
yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to get it on record. Thank you.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. Do you have any update on the minor mental spells, 1212, Shroud of Deception, or Mind Wipe? 1225?
None. I mean, I've kind of considered 1212 recently based upon a discussion with another GM, and I mean, with the current design that we were looking at, it's kind of massive because like it requires going through pretty much every script that's ever been created in the game and evaluating whether it would be appropriate for this spell to override the race check.
Right.
So we are like overriding your look features. What other players look at you is a very easy part. That's actually been done for years. But we weren't comfortable releasing it like that, so it's on my list, and maybe it's something if we kind of backtrack on how we go about implementing it, we could look at getting it out sooner.
Okay.
But 1235 or 25, there's been no development on that, but again, it could happen. We just haven't had time to tackle it.
Okay. And with a Zealot adding attack strength when you hurl, if anything with that, if that's possible.
It's possible. I'd have to talk with the rest of the team about it to see. I imagine the original reasoning was it was explicitly disallowed because they don't see paladins as basically throwing weapons typically.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Hi. I have a more general question. One of my personal things I've always wanted to see in this game is a lot of armor bases and weapon bases simply aren't attractive, aren't really used outside of tiering up to full plate when you can get it. Is there, and I realize it's a very massive undertaking, but is there any chance for these things to be looked at and some across the board balancing changes that would make a lot more design space usable, so it's not just full plate or nothing, or the highest tier you can reasonably get?
I mean, there is some justification for not always going for like full plate because of like spell hindrance or maneuver penalties. I agree. Like especially with weapons, there's a huge discrepancy. You're not going to use certain weapons ever. So there's room for that, but you're right. It is like a pretty huge undertaking and trying to balance it.
I just feel it would benefit everyone. It wouldn't be a single class. It would be many, and that's just my opinion. So
it would, but I think the other thing is like it's also mostly would be kind of flavor. Like, yeah, you would be bringing certain weapons up to a higher standard, but in reality, we're just giving different options for a different weapon for you to swing. I know. I'm not saying it's not a good goal. I'm just saying it's something that we haven't tackled. I would say most people probably would not be against it, though. So it's a possibility.
Just have a couple questions. One's a suggestion. I was curious if there's any thought to giving the ability to create your own scrolls, to scribe scrolls.
I mean, we've considered it before. There probably wouldn't be a lot of movement towards that just because there are other spells that kind of do that with magical items. I don't know. It's possible.
Well, I'm kind of curious from a perspective of a warrior or rogue or monk that might want to take advantage of skills that they don't have their own spell line, nor do they deserve one, but they might be able to really benefit from higher level MIU and AS. Which also, second suggestion is, or question, would it make any sense to raise the upper limits for warriors and rogues and or monks for the amount of ranks they can train for MIU and AS?
I would say no. Just because those professions are not supposed to be huge innate magic users. Like, it doesn't make sense that a warrior would 2x in magic item use the same as a wizard. Just based upon like profession lore and all that stuff. I mean, in most RPGs, that's not there's a clear division between those two professions.
Maybe for types of magic items and types of spells, but I'm not sure I agree on whether or not a particular individual might not be more magical than others. But I'll take your answer. The third thing, yes, and this one's probably been done to death. Any plans to upgrade COL? Change, modify, revamp, etc. What they did to Voln.
I mean, yeah, there are some limited signs there, but there are also some really powerful ones. So I mean,
there's overlap.
I'm not sure most people would like the idea of us doing a review of it. Yeah, the durations really do.
So sign of clotting and then sign of staunching. That's an overlap that makes the first one useless, and in today's game doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, there are certainly signs that are more limited use than others.
And then sign of possession, the spirit use on it just I'll never use it.
Yeah, I can understand that.
And most players would never do it. So I'm not sure I agree that a full revamp is necessary, but certainly I think that a review is called for.
Yes, but if we're going to spend time on it, we would probably go through each and every one of them to make sure that they align with today's standards.
I like that idea.
I don't think you would.
It's a very good idea.
Just a quick comment on his Zealot, and you had stated that, well, we don't really see paladins as, big hurlers. However, Zealot's a Mass Effect spell when the paladin leads, so it would affect all the hurlers that are with him.
It would.
It's kind of one of those things to consider.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks.
Because they are stuck in. The rest of the group is stuck in offensive with a negative 21 to 40 DS, but they don't get the benefit if they're hurlers or archers.
Derek, are you in the room? Oh. He has actually an update regarding that specific issue.
About it affecting the whole group?
Yep. I will let him, I believe he plans on actually releasing it tomorrow.
Are we going to have a choice? That would be awesome.
You'll just have to wait for the update from him. You'll probably be very happy about it, though.
Tomorrow, he said.
Well, that was his goal, but if it doesn't happen tomorrow, don't post on the forums asking why hasn't it happened.
Lots of love. Rangers do not.
I noticed the test server's open sometimes it's not open.
Wait, who's
so
talking?
I'm back here, Pat.
Oh.
How do you decide when to open the test server to characters or to players?
Just usually when we have major changes that are getting ready to be implemented. It's not something that we want players on having access to test everything, to break all of our formulas,
As like a follow-up on that, how do you think about how much about mechanics you want to leave as a mystery and how much you want to share with players so they can do what they want?
I don't know. That's kind of like a topic that's like very controversial, even on the development team itself. Anyone that knows me know that like I've probably released more information about mechanics than most GMs over the last 10 years. I'm totally for information because I feel like players need the information so that they can decide how to best train their character. And I mean, Some players do like the mystery of it, but if you do, then you don't have to look up the details of it.
I had a question on Wizards again. I'm sorry, I know you're very happy with them right now, but specifically the Wizards Familiar 920 spell. A lot of Wizards really care about what their Familiar looks like and wish they could always have the same one, but they worry about the talismans and it dropping and running out or whatnot. I know we had a change with Water Lore where you can now anchor it. Is there any chance you could anchor it like a Ranger pet if you had enough Water Lore or some other lore or something, so that you don't have to worry about ever recasting it?
What do you mean never recasting it?
Well, like a Ranger companion pet, they don't have to recast the spell to get a new companion. They just call their companion.
I don't know. It's something to consider. I wouldn't say I'm outright against it, but I'm not sure I would support it either. So.
All right, thank you.
Oh, it is on. Okay. Hey, so is there any interest in making UAC work for Berserk for Warriors? Pretty please.
I don't think there's anything against, like, nothing wrong with that. It would just require probably, it wouldn't be a very quick and easy update, probably.
Okay. It would be super nice.
Something we could consider it.
All right. Just your standard question about it. Any news on the hurling updates? Just asking for all the folks at home, I guess.
No, there's been no work on that.
Or well, review rather, not updates.
So it's still on our backlist.
Okie dokie. Just figured I'd ask. Can you please give us an update on the transportation changes?
I already did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that's on my plate, and I've been pulled in many different directions over the last year, but I do plan on trying to make it like a top priority right after Simucon. So.
Yeah, just because I asked, right? No, I understand there's a billion scripts and spells, but the one thing that I don't understand is the premium transport system. Why that hasn't changed yet?
I mean, that will be one thing that will be changed with it.
Yeah.
So, all transportation, ships, minecarts, everything will be changing.
Does that include sorcerer?
Does it include what?
740. Will
yeah,
740
all
be
teleportation
adjusted?
spells will be updated. But don't, just because we're updating it to allow it to work within a zone doesn't mean you're just going to get that with the base spell. You should expect to have additional training to unlock that feature.
Yeah, can we get the alchemy recipe for 740, the crystalline chalk? Can we get that adjusted, please? It's a little ridiculous.
Versus buying it in the store?
Versus buying it in the store, yes. It's much more expensive to create the chalk than buy it in the store.
Are all the components that you use to make it bought from the guild shop?
No, it's like not even close. You need an astro bowl.
We can look at it.
I've asked several times on the officials.
We can look at it.
Thank you.
So you said that warriors and rogues and monks are not necessarily magical, correct?
They are less magical than others.
So let's go down the anti-magical path. You have a particular skill that's just horribly implemented. It's called Shield Mind. It is a 10-second duration with a 2-minute cooldown. It is absolutely useless. You have to guess when they're going to cast at you. It is a single cast. It blocks one spell and it's gone. And if you don't catch it in that 10 seconds, it's entirely useless. So you could spend eons trying to figure out the prep phrases from monsters that might cast at you, and then try and put a reactive script in place, but you can't effectively do that. So I would suggest that a review of that is done, and maybe even just made it a little more useful, where it lasts for 30 seconds with a 5-minute cooldown, or something that makes it practical.
I would say shield specializations in general can probably be reviewed, especially ones that aren't used very much. As we've done with Seamans over the years, if something isn't used, we definitely want to make it more attractive. And so if that falls into that category, it's something to consider.
Yeah, I'm built that way, but I don't use it ever. It's just not functional.
Okay.
So on the topic of alchemy, with the recent Duskruin releases of the 8x, 9x, 10x enchanting potions, there have been issues with people being able to enchant fusion above 7x because there's no pre-temper potions for that. Will we potentially see a release of alchemy recipes for those on a limited basis?
I wouldn't count on it. We intentionally have that limit in there because we didn't want that happening. Yeah, maybe under Fusion 2.0.
I got a quick ranger question. Have you ever thought about giving them more verbs, like the way the familiars can climb on people and do kinds of stuff like that? Other than just sit and sleep and follow?
I mean, we're not against it. I mean, if players want to come up with some ideas, we can look at implementing it. Usually on a lot of those, it's the messaging that's really the burdensome point. So if you have ideas and post them, it could save us a lot of work and probably increase the odds that something like that would happen.
If I missed an update on this already, where does Fusion stand right now, and are there going to be orbs at the next EG or orb creation?
That's definitely a more a Mario question. There will be no more extraction under the old system, so if it is at an event, you should expect 2.0.
Thank you.
On a mini quest question, is that you guys?
A mini quest?
Right.
It depends on the quest.
So there was a lot of talk about daytime stuff and basically trying to limit how much effort GMs could do to turn things on, turn things off. We have 3 or 4 real mini quests that we're going to be closing. One is the Lich's Landing, one is Shadow Guard that's already built, and now Necro, the Necropolis. And my thing is, with the state of how the entire role-playing world has been with the advent of the Red Forest, the conflict, those mini quests phasing in now and then, opening up, their little mini things come up, and then you just have to go through that quest, do something, and then turn it back off, and then it fades away for 6-8 months. But then it would just fade in and out once in a while when you guys feel that something needs to be done.
No.
That way those things disappear forever.
No, the problem is those are temporary hunting grounds that we allow because a lot of times all it is a reskinned creature. And those environments also don't have a lot of hazards that you would see in a typical hunting ground, which is why the idea of those becoming permanent is a no-go for us. We've implemented many solutions over the last couple of years for capped hunting grounds to Confluence. The thing is people don't want to do those challenges, and so they want to go to the temporary hunting ground where those don't exist, but that's not really an option from our standpoint. Because we have to make sure that you guys are challenged and you feel like you're not always going to win, otherwise it's going to lead to boredom in the game. I mean, I can certainly take a rat and make it a level 110 creature and let you hunt it, but it would get very boring very quickly.
Hey, so just curious on that last question. If we collect enough undead and make it harder, can we keep Lich's Landing then? I'm just kidding. My actual question was about post-cap stuff. Is there any potential in the future for some kind of way to I think it would be cool, for example, if you could trade one spell circle for another spell circle. I know that would create a lot of balance issues and would be a huge undertaking, but let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if I wanted to trade my major spiritual for a sorcerer, that would be pretty cool. Even for a lot of TPs or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Is something like that, or some kind of prestige class idea, anything that might come around
post-cap
later?
development is definitely something that's on our plate that we're hoping to tackle maybe this year. I mean, it is something we really do want to see happen, but as you can imagine, it's a very large project.
Yeah, totally.
But it's totally, I don't know if that specific idea would make it, but things similar to that are definitely a possibility. And I think in the state of Atlantia, someone asked about like getting the innate crit padding to your character. Stuff like that you could definitely expect to see. But I will say, like, you would get these abilities, but you can expect that the creatures you would have to kill to earn post-cap development would be more than willing to destroy you even with that stuff.
I had a question. I'm not sure if it's intentional or a bug or something to be looked at. Again, I'm sorry it's about wizards, but doing rings specifically, sometimes large groups of 10, 20 people are going through at a time, and it's really nice how sorcerers have Grasp of the Grave, and when they cast that, they get take on everything in the room, which kind of helps with not killing things too quickly. Wizards don't really have an option for that, but one thing is 909. It does have messaging like you're affecting the creature, but if it's already knocked down, you don't get tag. Is there any way that could be looked at?
Is 709 tagging creatures that are already knocked down?
Yes, it is. It's currently tagging anything, even if
So
it's knocked
that's
down.
the bug then. It's not when you initially cast it. As each arm triggers after you cast the initial one, it will hold them down. But it should not be tagging everything on the initial cast if the target is already down. It's a bug then. But yeah, 410 and 909 are the wizard options to that. The thing is, when you get groups of that size, like, everything goes out the window, so it's hard for us to have any type of way that everyone could get credit on that type of stuff.
Okay, so not gonna happen then. I just got a bunch of people asking me to ask, so.
I mean, I don't know. It's something that we could look at it, but I'm not sure that there's actually an issue there from our standpoint.
My apologies if this information is already out there, but considering Fusion 2.0, how will Fusion 1.0 orbs work, particularly relating to pry and any degradation that could occur?
Like, I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure we've already posted the details where basically if you pry a 1.0 orb, it has a chance to degrade into a 2.0 orb.
Okay, thank you.
I just wondering what's the outlook on additional post-cap hunting areas?
We're not actively working on any right now. Before we would do another post-cap area, we would actually be working on post-cap development goals. Just because those two are going to go hand in hand, because when we implement new abilities for you to earn points to train, you will have to be going under new hunting grounds that are much more tougher than your standard ones. So
I see. Okay. Like, the only one right now is the scatter.
No. You said first you would be working on your post-cap.
Post-cap development goals.
Yeah, what is that list?
Well, it's not like an actual list I'm gonna just read out. The idea is that you can earn experience, not general experience, but experience towards post-cap development that you could then spend. You'd get points that you could then spend on stuff like to give your character better crit padding. Yes. Abilities that you would not otherwise be able to get without them.
Okay, we're almost out of time here, so just any last key questions you're dying to ask, except for that guy who's already asked like 40. Anybody else? And then I've got a question for you from the chat, which is, would you consider adding some sort of guild skill or class spell or something that will help in a group hunt situation for helping people who ward cast better in groups? So like if you're hunting, you could, like, in groups people can lower AS for their, or DS for their friends, or lower whatever, but
clerics and empaths can cast 217, which lowers TD. It is spiritual TD, but bards too with Song of Depression. Yeah, I think they were looking at like multi-target. Yeah, and wizards can also, they can use core chap with 413 to affect everything in the room. Like, you don't always have to use a spell to decimate everything. Like, you can help your group too. Right. Yeah. No direct plans for it. I believe there's actually a savant spell that we had planned for that, but we would have to see.
Speaking of post-cap stuff, I think a way to learn other languages would be really awesome. Like, even if you could just more customize what languages your character can speak or hear or read or whatever.
You know,
would be a really awesome thing to put into that.
Interestingly, there's a savant spell for that.
Ah, damn it! Foiled again. Okay.
No,
thank you.
It's definitely, it's a reasonable request. I think a lot of people would like that. It would still probably have to be limited somehow, just because that is like a super rare ability that comes into, and a lot of people use that in their role play to great effect, where they want to make sure the lesser races don't understand them. So. But I mean, it's not a bad idea.
Pat, are there any updates on Disarm?
No, it is going to be, the GM that is responsible for it is hoping to get back into it soon. Disarm is something, it's a horrible mechanic. Just permanent item loss in general is horrible. So that will not be going away, but, or, I'm sorry, permanent item loss will be going away, but you still can be disarmed. So.
Any chance of seeing a version of Troll's Blood that doesn't leave wounds on or scars on people who don't want to have scars, because that's super annoying?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Something, yeah, I would like to see that too. That probably should be removed too.
He's still talking about permanent item loss.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
He just said Troll's Blood should be removed.
Is there any chance that metals might be getting looked at? So different metals, like Impos is supposed to be real light, but once you go to max light, there's no difference.
With the whole forging and smelting, that has actually been looked at. It's just it won't be ready until that system is ready. Ideally, there's a whole bunch of new different properties metals can have mechanically, and so it's all pending that update.
On forging, any chance of adding something similar to the Mantis crystals, but being more available in game, so that you have the chance to create flaring weapons?
I think the idea behind that will be that you would actually go and like mine like Drakkar, so you could create a fire flaring weapon.
I'm sorry, and the possibility of forging weapons with other special abilities other than flaring.
I don't know of any direct plans for that, but it's possible.
There's a request to ask, although I don't know why, but there's a request to ask if there's any movement on guild skills for classes who don't currently have them.
No, and that would be like the lowest priority ever.
Does that mean it's a lower priority than savants? Because I was wondering, this is probably a one-word answer. Any updates on savants?
I would do savants before I would do guild skills. There's no work being done towards them. It's actually something I would like to see done. So but we have so many other things on our plate, and a lot of players don't like when we're not doing work for their profession. So it's hard to justify work for a profession that doesn't exist.
Yeah. So it's on the hopefully someday list.
Yep.
Still. Okay.
So I just wanted to go back to permanent item loss. Suck. But so are you gonna? It seems like you're gonna get just your guaranteed inflation here, unless you implement some other way, like upkeep cost on items or something like that.
No, we're not doing breakage. Like items in general, we don't. I wouldn't say like we're having. I wouldn't say item loss now is a means to combat inflation. Like really good items don't generally get lost due to disarm. Like those players assist and get the item replaced. So
okay,
it would continue under the current system.
Okay.
People are gonna be mad. I'm gonna waste the last question. In terms of the guild work has been made a lot easier in terms of advancement in the past year.
Uh-huh.
Or so. And I was wondering if the artisan RT is going to be looked at all, like cobbling and forging, and it's kind of insane.
It's possible. We could probably look at it. Yeah, it could be.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
But,
so I mean, yeah, it could be considered.
Everyone, please give GMs Mestis and Chaos a hand for sitting there so prettily. And a big thank you to GM Estild for taking all the questions.